Yeah,
Good afternoon, everybody.
yeah.
So, this is the ramblings of me. I've had a lot of people that's interested and reaching out to support, and we are very grateful. I think we're all still waiting to find out about the refugee status, and that means that I don't really want to be linked or attached to any GoFundMe or monies in such a way that could jeopardize this project. This is documenting people's lives and also capturing the history of what is happening at the moment. What I do know is that our government is out, and that has been happening for centuries. It's not just our government. I think it's just human nature to kind of silence the losers and the people that were persecuted. It's very hard usually to understand what was happening and going on around their lives. Also, we will be having a talk on Spaces on Sunday. I will probably link it in the video below so that you can actually join if you would like. I will be there, and then also Don Ruet. He is a South African author and writer, and they also had a march today for the farm murders. So there's a lot of people that will be staying in South Africa and also be fighting. And I think the question that the world would like to maybe have answered is, if there's people staying, why the refugee status, or why would you take it? Then clearly it can't be that bad. But I think a lot of people do miss the fact that our forefathers and the original settlers that did come to South Africa um, walked over the mountains barefoot. And my gran used to tell me this. Um, and any story you hear from your grandparents and parents will always be like, why are you complaining? We used to walk barefoot over the mountains, over the Drakensberg Mountains. And I think that captures the Afrikaner's kind of soul and heart in this situation, because I think a lot of people do miss that it is a persecution. And I do feel like through the centuries, it's not really have or letten up. There's been wars and there's been tribal struggles, and each had to kind of carve its little alcove for itself to survive. And the Afrikaner or the Boer did kind of come to some agreements with some of the tribes back in the day, especially the Zulu. And I know also that the Zulu at this point is also fighting a lot of internal battles and wars with the government itself. And I do feel that it was very constructively used by the ANC to use the white man as a kind of a shield, the Afrikaner kind of especially, but the minorities also, but most of the stuff is targeted to the Afrikaner directly, viciously, an ongoing war for centuries. Um, the hatred is it's deep, and the trauma is runs deep, and it's kind of payback. And a lot of things I've been reading on X specifically also shows the extreme anger, resentment, jealousy. I think especially with the refugee status, I'm sure that if that was an open call for all South Africans, white and black, I am sure that most of the country would leave, only because the African, or let's say the American kind of idea, and the ghetto, and then the R&B, and then the whole lifestyle has much more of an impact on the African itself in South Africa. Um, so the youth will definitely jump for it. And I think that's where a lot of the anger comes towards and directed towards us. Extreme kind of vile hatred of Bahamba, just voetsack, and that just means leave. You leave. And our forefathers, we have to have retribution for our forefathers and the land and half of it is based on zero facts. Also, it's not a game the Afrikaner generally plays, or a religion that the Afrikaner generally upholds as part of Christianity. But the forefathers and appeasing the forefathers seems to be very much in the foreground for these kind of attacks. And it seems to be a form of psychosis or spiritual entity taken over. I don't know. It's easy for the dark side to play there because it justifies its actions. And in the courts at the moment, it justifies its actions. The kill the Boer, kill the farmer, pa 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 pa, gone, that kind of whole thing. Drink the blood of the black of the Boer. These kind of rhetorics has been justified and made normal, and because it's appeasing an old struggle, and that their youth is also being like battered with and is going to be lugged down with for the next 30 years to come. So my reasoning for leaving is for my son. I'm sure that if I didn't have a child that has to try and make a life for himself in South Africa, being capped at every corner, not being able to excel, not being able to, if you're not kind of have some form of a nepotistic kind of business, then your child would not be able to make it by himself. He would be downtrodden and he would probably give up. And the fact that in 30 years, the community hasn't given up so much does kind of show the kind of backbone and resilience. And I think when it's a type of a trauma response also for a lot of the white Afrikaners to want to stay, because it's a weird feeding frenzy for both sides. Um, yeah, so we are out of your league. We have to laugh sometimes, although we would be crying. But in any case.